I picked up this Denon DR-M34HR as a possible record head donor for the M44 I'm working on. I don't know that these heads are 100% compatible. There's a few years difference between the two models, but the transports are very similar, even though the M44 is direct drive and the 34 is belt drive. But they look very similar, and they have, from what I saw in the specs, similar frequency response, and they're similar heads. And I don't know 100% that I'll need it, but the opportunity came up, and so I went ahead and bought this deck. And if it turns out I don't need it for that, then this will be a possible future project. So the interior looks very similar from one deck to the other. Configuration is the same. They appear to be compatible by looks and by specs from what I saw, but I will have to do some research to see if it's truly compatible or not. But I'm going to evaluate this one just like I did the other one. This door's kind of loose here. I'm not sure what's going on with it. That's not a big concern, but I'm noticing it. Yeah, I don't know why that's like that. I'll clean this one up the same way I did the M44. This one's got quite a bit more debris around it and in it. It's like it's been sitting for a very long time. I did a little wiping on that top faceplate that looks so bad, and it actually does clean up pretty well. These are anodized, and they can look pretty bad if they're not taken care of. But I think it could actually clean up pretty well if I needed it to. You really can't tell by looking at them if a head is really dirty and oxidized or not. It'll build up a coating, and it can still look pretty clean, but when you really go after it, you find out that it's oxidized, and it's got some it's got a film on top of it, and that does affect things. So visually this thing looks fine, and visually the other one looked fine, and it may be that after a thorough polishing that they're both actually okay. I'm just turning the pinch roller with my hand and cleaning it. This one I'm kind of spinning the swab there to kind of turn the pinch roller. I'm turning that capstan with another swab, and it's what I'm noticing is it's got more resistance there than what it really should have. So this will definitely need a lube before I even turn it on. And that tape residue is just not coming off of that very well. It's caked on there. And really this is something that should be done frequently on these. Sometimes I'll throw a tape in and it will, in just a few feet, start to shed and, you know, get things all dirty very quickly. Other times I'll put a tape in and it can run for an hour and I don't even see a bit of debris. But this is a good policy to just keep these things clean all the time. Right now I'm just using IPA. I do have a dedicated head and pinch roller cleaner that I use, but at this point I'm just trying to evaluate and have no knowledge if this will even turn on and operate. They're turning, I can feel them turning, but everything seems to be tight. There's more resistance on everything than what there should be. So this could be, you know, old oil. It could be, it doesn't smell like there's any smoke or anything like that in it, but who knows? Yeah, finally got that off. Yeah, get a clean one in there. This one I can just kind of turn it a little bit with my finger. Now it infeeds actually fairly clean. Doesn't have the buildup that the other one did. Not too bad. This pinch roller is really tight. That should spin freely. They're both really tight. So I'm going to take just a little drop of oil. These are bronze bushings on these, and I'll just put a little drop of oil on those and let it penetrate in. I'll use nye oil. And I'll just put it on the outside of that bearing and let it weep in. Just right there, right on the edge. Of course, not getting any on the rubber. Sorry about the focus here again. I thought I'd put this thing in manual, but apparently not. Now the other thing I'll do on this one is pull those oil seals back a little bit and put a little capstan lube on the edge of that bearing as well. I generally just pull those off with a fingernail. If I had a fingernail, I could do that. That one's right up against it. I can't get behind it, so I'll have to use a dental pick. Now these little oil seals a lot of times are missing, and oftentimes they're missing on the Tascam decks, and I don't know why that is exactly, but they are. And this is something that I will be manufacturing here pretty soon and selling for anybody that might need them. Now this one got something in here. I can't really tell exactly what it is, but it's wound around that shaft. It's like a hair or something. I can't tell. But I'm going to get that out of there. And yep, sure enough. So that's unhelpful. I'll get the rest of those out. Alright, well, you don't want to see out of focus stuff. This is the regular capstan lube that I use. PGP65, I think, is the number on it. Even though I'll take this apart and thoroughly clean it and re-oil everything, I'll still use the correct oil on this to begin with. Just give it a quick demag. I'm actually fast forwarding through this, so I do this much slower. Push the oil seals back on. Those should not be tight. They should be about a 1/16 or so clearance between the bearing and the seal. Those capstans need to have the end play that they have, and so you don't want to push those up there and tighten them. All right, it turns on. That's good. They're spinning. I'll just take another swab and a little bit more IPA and just clean off any oil, any capstan oil that might have gotten on those. And this is something, you know, maybe once a year to lubricate those bushings is probably recommended. This cleaning procedure, you know, can be done anytime. I would only lube those bearings maybe once a year or so, depending on the use. That might even be a little bit much. Alright, well, I think what I'll do is throw in a copyright friendly tape here. Hopefully this won't flag me. I've got noise. Looks like it's running kind of fast. Probably somebody speeded up the motor because the components were so gummed up. So I'm just going to take a this is just a cut-off swab, and I've just shaped it in the shape of a screwdriver. So I'm just sticking a wooden dowel in there, basically. But it's operational, so I've got speed control, which is good on the motor. Okay, let's try that for a second. Looks like I've got forward wind. and play. Got pretty good torque on the reels. I got forward wind, but I do not have rewind. It's trying, it's making noise, but it's not actually working. So that's something to deal with. You see it's speeding back up as the oil's penetrating in there and starting to loosen everything up. So no doubt somebody had speeded this up because all the components were running too tight. I just grab my little camera here and show the scope. So I've got signal left and right. And I've got fairly good movement on the capstan. The belts were good. Of course, I looked at the belts and they were in pretty good shape. They weren't stretched. Somebody might have changed those, but I've got good motion there. It's a little noisy. I don't know if it can be heard on the video, but there is some noise in the transport. I played around a little bit with it here and did get the rewind working okay, or at least working. Everything's slow. It needs a cleaning and a relube, but I did get it working, and it's intermittent. If it sits for a little while, it stops, and then if I rock it back and forth and get it moving, then I can get all transport functionality out of it. Rewind, forward wind. But if it sits for a while, it'll stop. And then it has to warm up again and work. So that's not a problem. That can be dealt with. Okay, so now the recording needs to test. Doesn't look like there's anything on this tape. Controls aren't scratchy, surprisingly, but they're not. Just going through a bunch of different frequencies here, and I'm looking at the scope while I'm doing this. Now let me get the camera up there and show you what I'm seeing. Okay, so right about here is the frequency I'm looking at. So I'm at 10 kilohertz here. And I'm just seeing what kind of high end I have on it. And I'm running up the T100, the Nakamichi T100. I'm just using the signal, using it as a signal generator. And, you know, here I am at 18 kilohertz, 20 kilohertz, and I've got signal. And the amplitude is fairly consistent. A little bit of phase error there, but that's easy to fix. So yeah, I think the heads are good. This is the manual bias control, and I'm over and under biasing, and I'm seeing the expected results off of that. Over bias, there's under bias, and that's exactly what should happen. Yeah, there's difference between the left and right channel, but that's fine. So I think I've got a good set of heads here. And if in the event they're needed, I have them. If not, then to quote the famous Keith Fenner, I'd rather be looking at them than looking for them. So I still have hope that the M44 heads are okay, but we'll see how that turns out. I'll put on some non-copyright friendly music here and see how many seconds I can get away with. And then I'm just going to have a little listening test on my own here. So that's it. That's the donor deck if needed, and if not, another one that might be coming up. Thanks for watching.